if we're focused on polls, we're focused on the wrong things. At the end of the day, the folks that I'm talking to aren't worried about whether or not we win or lose. They're worried about their country.
The political tide goes in, the political tide goes out. That's the reality, and so we're swimming into the tide. It's tough.
I don't focus on polls. I focus on my community. I focus on the voice of Milton.
Just work harder and just make sure that you get the word out on the work that you are doing. There's no magic formula to this.
I'm going to be convincing my constituents they should still be voting for me. You vote for a person on the ballot, not a party.
A sampling there of Liberal MPs and ministers responding to questions from reporters as the House rises for the summer and they head back to their constituencies about a succession of polls that have come out this week that show the Liberals are no better off in public opinion than they were 6 months ago. Let me give you a quick sampling of. The first comes from Abacus, which has the Tories up by 20 points. Angus Reid, they're up by 21. Ipsos, they're up by 18. This is the Tories over the Liberals. And the Nanos tracker has them 14 points ahead. Let's bring in our front bench to talk about what you just heard as a response to those numbers and the numbers themselves. Joining me this evening, Saeed Selvam is the Vice President and Practice Lead of Public Affairs at National Public Relations. Former Alberta MLA and Cabinet Minister Gary Marr is with us. He's the President and CEO of the Canada West Foundation. Former Ontario NDP MPP Gurratan Singh is here. He's now Vice President at Crestview Strategy. Also, we always disclose the brother of federal NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, and Marieke Walsh rounds us out tonight. She's a senior political reporter with the Globe and Mail. Hey, everybody. Good to see you here from Edmonton. Marieke, I'll start with you because if I recall, it was your story at the outset of the big budget rollout that garnered quite a bit of reaction, which was that Liberals internally were saying they would like to see a 5-point swing towards them because of what they were putting out there by the end of June into the summer season. Here we are. At that point, it doesn't seem to me that the numbers have swayed the way they wanted. What are you hearing about their reaction to that?
Well, I think you see a lot of Liberals pointing to the Nanos poll, which is, as you laid out, the most optimistic for them. But there's no doubt that when you average it all out, it's still not a good picture. And they are not just fighting the political gravity of the sort of swing between changes in governments that we see in Canadian elections every 8 to 10 years, but they're also dealing with a leader who, in a turn of events, is now polling below his party. And that's really significant because Justin Trudeau was always championed as somebody who would sort of be ahead of the Liberals, bringing the Liberals along with him. And now he, according to the polling, is a drag on the party's numbers. So that is significant for them. It's sort of another thing for them to grapple with. And I think, it was interesting watching the spin of some of those MPs that people don't vote for parties. I'm not sure that is correct based on what we see. I thought Sean Casey was likely sort of the most frank and straight up with what they're facing, which is tide.
Saeed, if you're grasping onto a 14-point deficit rather than 20-point deficit, what does that say?
I don't think it makes too much of a difference. At the end of the day, they're both double digits, and especially right now with such a tough political climate and also the House rising, the Liberals are going to have a challenging time. So what they're going to have to strategize and focus on is really getting back to the constituencies, going hand to hand and meeting people where they are and speaking to voters and trying to drum up as much support as they can. Now, one thing that I think is very interesting to focus on is the upcoming St. Paul's by-election. I know many times people say that by-elections are not indicators of the outcome of a general election, but this by-election is really one to watch, especially given the fact that you have a very formidable Liberal candidate running in the riding. This is a former chief of staff to Deputy Prime Minister Freeland. So she is very well connected, not just to the DPMO, but the Prime Minister's office as well. Two, it's a Liberal stronghold. It is and has been a Liberal stronghold for quite some time. So depending on the outcome of that by-election, we may see some very tough conversations that happen in the PMO because this is, again, a very high-profile candidate who would be running for the Liberals. So I'm very interested, and I have my eyes particularly on that by-election, but it's just something that the Liberals have to really focus on when it comes to their next steps and strategies going forward.
Do you think it changes narrative or strategy, Gary, heading into the summer, since it is such a Liberal stronghold? Like, if they were to come close to lose or lose itself, it would be a big deal. Any other outcome, does it really change anything going into the summer?
Well, let me say, first of all, you're in Edmonton and I'm in Alberta, and I'm desperately trying to grow a playoff beard to cheer on the Edmonton Oilers. And let's see how that goes. First of all, let's go with that first. So, I think that if the Liberals lose the by-election, that would be a serious blow to the government. I don't expect them to, but everything's possible. And let me say that the strength that the Conservatives have shown in this polling, I think, is largely because they've been focused on 3 or 4 things. They've been focused on building homes. They've been focused on axing the carbon tax. They've been focused on stopping crime and fixing the budget. And I think that the Liberals are trying everything that they can find, and it looks like they're grasping at a whole bunch of different issues to try and get themselves above water. But the Conservatives have a better social media presence. The Liberals have set traps for them in the last couple of months of the House. And they haven't taken the bait, and they've allowed external critics to be the critics of things like the online harms bill and the capital gains tax. So, I wouldn't put too much into this by-election, but for sure, if the Liberals lose this, given the candidate and given how long it's been held, that would be a serious problem for the government. But keep in mind that we are still a long ways from an election. Lots can happen between now and October of next year. But for this summer, depending on what MPs hear, on the barbecue circuit and on the parade stands, it may be an indicia of the difficulty that the Liberals have with Justin Trudeau leading them into the next election.
Well, I'll just pick up on one point Gary made. He referenced Gurratan, the capital gains tax, right, which was politically meant to be a wedge, particularly with the Conservatives. Angus Reid puts out a poll today that shows a full fifth of Canadians, which is not the 0.13% or even the 4% that Jack Mintz was saying might be affected. A fifth of Canadians think that this is going to impact them. What does that tell you about how this ended up working for the government?
I think it's another example of the Liberal government being unable to communicate policy that actually could have a benefit towards investing in public services and helping to strengthen things like healthcare and more. It's added to the list of things alongside the price on pollution, the carbon tax, and the many other miscommunications that this government has had. So I think it demonstrates the government's lack of ability to really get ahead and really own the narrative. And in addition, it's also the inertia of 9 years of dissatisfaction with the Liberals, and it feels like no matter what they put forward, there are people there's just such a large contingent of Canadians who are dissatisfied with whatever the Liberals really put forward.
Okay, on that note, we're going to talk about something else the Liberals put forward today. The federal government announced that they're going to list the IRGC as a terror entity. The 5 of us will be back in just 2 minutes to talk about why now.